Some blows don't make a sound. No sharp slap, no shout. Just a quiet crack inside you that no one sees. My name is James. I'm 38 years old, and for the past 4 years, I worked as a senior project manager at an energy company in Houston, Texas. I say worked because something inside me had already begun to unravel, long before I realized it. It was good in the beginning, solid projects, recognition from the execs, even a promotion. But then something shifted. I don't remember exactly when it started, but the signs were there, subtle at first. It all began when Olivia joined the team. Olivia was personally recruited by our manager, Mason. Her resume was flawless, her demeanor cold. She carried herself with an air of arrogance, especially toward me. At first, it was the small stuff, eye rolls during meetings, interrupting my presentations, passive-aggressive questions about my reports. I brushed it off. These things happen at work, right? But this wasn't just personality friction. This was a plan. One morning I walked into the office and found the documents on my desk rearranged. My notes were messed up. I thought it might have been the cleaning crew. But it happened again. And again, then came the accidental coffee spill, the missing USB drive, the corrupted files. Each time, Olivia acted surprised. "Oh no, how strange. That's never happened to me," she'd say, smiling with the innocence of a well-rehearsed actress. I started to see the pattern, and just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Mason called me into his office. "James, we've been noticing a dip in your performance," he said flatly. "Project timelines are slipping. Your leadership seems less effective." Right then, I knew everything I'd experienced, the disruptions, the missing files, the passive jabs, wasn't random. It was a coordinated takedown. And Olivia, she wasn't just sabotaging my work, she was eroding my reputation. After that meeting, things escalated. She whispered to team members, dropped sly comments. "James seems a little tired lately. He's not really on top of things anymore, huh?" I began to notice it in their eyes, the way they'd glance at me, then quickly look away. The laughter that stopped when I entered a room, the lunches I used to share, now eaten without me. I was becoming a stranger in my own department. Every night I went home feeling hollow. I stared at my reflection and asked myself, is it really me? Have I changed? Mobbing doesn't leave bruises, it leaves doubt. It strips your confidence layer by layer until you start questioning your own reality. One day I decided to confront Olivia. I found her by the coffee machine. No one else was around. "What do you want from me?" I asked, not angrily, just tired. She looked up, smiled. "Nothing, James. It's just that some people block progress, and systems have a way of clearing clogs." That moment changed everything. This wasn't random, it was strategic. And now I was in the game. That night I stayed late at the office. I opened a fresh notebook, and for the first time I began documenting everything. Dates, names, times, missing files, tampered presentations, suspicious behavior. I saved every email, created backups on a private cloud no one could access. And then, I bought a voice recorder. Maybe it wasn't entirely legal, but when you're being hunted in silence, you fight with truth. I clipped it under my desk, let it record the casual cruelty, the quiet conspiracies. The game had started, and I wasn't backing down. Sometimes the only way to fight injustice is to go quiet. Not because you're weak, because you're watching, listening, documenting. That's exactly what I started doing. I knew I couldn't beat Olivia and Mason on their terms. They had influence, allies, subtle control, but what they didn't have was my knowledge of the system. My ability to track, trace, and outthink. I became a shadow in my own office, observing everything. The timing of emails, who opened which document and when, who altered which presentation file. I stored everything on an encrypted cloud. I built my case bit by bit. And then came the voice recordings. The recorder I placed under my desk started collecting gold. Conversations in the break room, mocking tones, fake concern. One day, while Olivia chatted with 2 team members near the kitchenette, the device captured this. "Is James still here?" she said, half laughing. "He won't last much longer. Mason's already planning to move him out. Poor guy doesn't even see it coming." That clip? That was everything. Proof. strategy, malice, all recorded in crystal clear audio. Later that same week, Olivia tried to help me. She approached my desk with a faux concerned look. "Hey James, I'll take over the client presentation tomorrow. You seem a little burned out. Get some rest." At face value, it sounded thoughtful. But I knew better. She wanted me out of the spotlight. She wanted to own the narrative in front of the client. She wanted my absence to look like weakness. I smiled. "Sure," I said, "but maybe we should go over it together. Some of the back-end logic might be tricky." Her face tensed for a split second. She didn't know the back-end logic. I did, and I had just set the stage. The next day, she stood confidently in front of the client, slides open, her posture sharp. The first few minutes went well, surface-level stuff, but as soon as the questions got technical, she stumbled, tried to improvise, failed. A client rep finally asked, "Who designed this system?" There was an awkward silence. "I did," I said, standing up. "If I may, let me walk you through the logic behind our approach." I explained everything clearly, calmly, confidently. The room quieted. Even Olivia had to sit down. When I finished, the same client turned to me and said, "That was excellent. You just answered every question we had. Thank you." That was her first visible fall. But I didn't celebrate, because this wasn't over. This was just the opening strike. That night, I transferred all the audio files to my laptop, cleaned the noise, labeled them precisely: mobbing audio 01, Olivia laugh.mp3, mobbing audio 02, Mason warning.mp, 3 mobbing audio 03, team gossip.mp3. Every file had a timestamp. Every detail was backed up 3 times. I wasn't just protecting my job anymore. I was reclaiming my dignity, piece by piece. And I decided this wouldn't be a spontaneous counterattack. This would be a calculated strike. But first, I had to wait. Wait for them to slip. And that moment was coming. Some victories don't come with applause. They don't feel like wins. They just shift the air around you. And in that shift, you're getting closer. After Olivia's blunder during the client presentation, things got oddly quiet. She kept her head down. Mason acted like nothing happened. But I knew this silence. This was the kind that comes before the next attack. So I used that calm. And I made my next move. I needed allies. I couldn't fight this alone forever. The first person I thought of was Kevin, a longtime colleague, quiet, observant, fair. We weren't close friends, but I trusted his character. During lunch, I asked him to join me outside for a walk. "I know you probably don't want to get involved," I said, "but I think you've seen what's going on." He didn't answer right away. He looked away. Then finally, he nodded. "James, Olivia's been working the team. I've heard things. But no one wants to speak up. Everyone's afraid. And let's be real. Speaking up here usually means packing up." I looked him in the eyes. "And staying silent means letting them win." There was a long pause. Then Kevin reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded page from a notepad. "I've been documenting things too," he said. That moment changed everything. We met after hours at a quiet cafe near the office, compared notes. His were detailed, screenshots, timeline gaps, flagged emails, even distribution logs showing how Olivia unfairly assigned work. We started building a timeline. We gave the project a name, Shadow Archive. A digital folder with all evidence, perfectly catalogued. The plan was simple: organize everything by date and topic. Gather more testimonials, quietly. Don't go to HR yet. First, find someone in upper management who could help. We didn't want this buried by protocol. Back at work, Olivia tried to act normal. She threw me a tight-lipped smile once or twice, but I could see it. She was uneasy. I kept smiling too. That's what threw her off the most. I didn't act like a victim. A few days later, a new hire joined the team, Daniel, young, smart, a little shy, and Olivia immediately started circling him, giving him guidance, pulling him into Mason's office. Too familiar, too fast. One night, I caught him by the elevators. "Hey Daniel," I said, "not gonna tell you what's what. Just want to ask, how many times has Olivia brought you into private chats with Mason this week?" He looked confused. Twice. Why?" Because those meetings weren't about you, I said. They were about me. And you're either standing beside me or watching from the sidelines when it's your turn. That stuck with him. Soon after, Daniel started drifting away from Olivia. He spoke more openly in meetings, and eventually he approached me. I think something's off here, he said. You've been through it, haven't you? I nodded, and just like that, I had another quiet witness. Piece by piece, my team grew. People who were once silent started watching more closely. Not because I asked them to, but because the truth was contagious. The shadow archive grew thicker, testimonies, files, emails, even a copy of Olivia's altered report logs. And with every entry, we got stronger. All I needed now was a single public misstep from them. One mistake. That would rip the mask off, and it was coming. Patience isn't just a virtue. Sometimes it's a trap. You wait, you listen, you document, and then in one move, you turn the spotlight on them. That moment had finally arrived. Mason called me into his office for a routine check-in. When I walked in, Olivia was already there. Laptop open, eyes sharp, smile faint. I could tell something was coming. Mason slid a folder across the desk. James, we've received some performance feedback, he said in that calm, polished HR voice. We're concerned about missed deadlines, declining team morale, client satisfaction. I glanced down. The report was titled Internal Review, James Wilson, and it was signed by Olivia. It was full of manipulated data, misrepresented project notes, cherry-picked comments. It was a setup. I didn't say a word. I let Mason continue. As per protocol, we're considering a temporary suspension while we conduct a deeper investigation. That's when I smiled, because I had come prepared. I reached into my bag and pulled out a black folder. No logos, no flashy tabs, just 3 words on the cover. Truth takes time. I'd like to submit some material before this conversation goes any further, I said. First, I played the audio. The break room recording came on, clear, undeniable. Is James still here? He won't last much longer. Mason's already planning to move him out. Poor guy doesn't even see it coming. Laughter. Olivia flinched. Mason shifted in his chair. That was recorded illegally, Olivia blurted, her voice sharp. Maybe, I replied, but was it untrue? Then came the printed emails, the spreadsheets, the testimony from Kevin. Daniel's signed statement, Rachel's documentation of prior incidents, everything organized, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Mason went pale. At that moment, someone knocked. Laura, our head of HR, stepped into the room. I had already briefed her days before. She had a copy of my entire file in her inbox, and she'd had time to verify it all. I've reviewed the documents, she said calmly, and I believe we're looking at something far more serious than a performance issue. She turned to Mason and Olivia. This is systemic harassment, coordinated manipulation, and it appears it's been going on for months. Silence. Mason looked like he had swallowed a rock. Olivia stared straight ahead, blinking rapidly. Then came the decisions. Olivia, immediate suspension pending investigation. Mason, placed under internal review. Me? I was reinstated, with a promotion. Reporting directly to senior leadership from now on, but I didn't feel triumphant. No joy, no ego. Just a quiet breath I hadn't taken in months. Because this wasn't just about getting my job back, it was about getting me back. That night I walked out of the office into a warm, humid Texas evening. Rain had just passed, and the streets were slick. I didn't care. I walked home slowly, letting the air wash over me. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't shrinking. I was standing tall. When justice is finally served, it doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't shout or shine. It just lets you breathe again. That day, I didn't celebrate. I didn't high-five anyone. I just felt lighter. But deep down, something else had shifted too. It wasn't enough to survive. Now I wanted to help others do the same. My new role came quickly. I was now reporting directly to the executive team, more authority, more eyes on me. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was this. I had a voice, and I could use it to protect others. My first initiative was to work with HR and build a new internal program. We called it the Integrity Watch. an anonymous reporting and analysis system designed to detect toxic patterns, internal manipulation, and silent harassment. At the same time, I started watching people, really watching. Those who had once stayed silent were starting to speak up. People held eye contact longer. Meetings felt lighter, and even morning greetings seemed genuine again. Kevin no longer avoided conversations. Daniel now voiced his opinions confidently. And even the junior staff who once walked on eggshells were starting to smile more freely. One day, while pouring tea in the break room, Rachel approached me. She'd been with the company longer than most. Quiet, reliable, faded into the background. "James," she said softly, "I saw everything. What you did." I didn't think anyone would ever have the guts. She paused. Her hands trembled slightly. "A while back, Olivia came after me too. I spoke up. No one listened. They said I was overreacting, so I just stopped trying." Her voice cracked just a little. "But then you stood up, and suddenly, I didn't feel so alone." That moment hit me harder than anything Mason or Olivia had ever done. Because now I understood. This wasn't just my story. This was ours. I documented Rachel's case, formally this time. With her permission, I added her experience to a confidential archive we were building of past mishandled complaints. HR had no choice but to take them seriously now. They opened a full review of older claims. 2 managers were quietly reassigned. Policy manuals were rewritten, and most importantly, a new division was born. The Office of Employee Equity and Accountability. It would operate independently, with full access, and I was appointed as its first lead advisor. But I didn't take that title with pride. I took it with responsibility. I hung no certificates on the wall, no plaques, just one small framed quote above my desk: "Some survive. Others rise." Every day I looked at that quote before I opened a single email. It reminded me I wasn't here because I beat someone. I was here because someone once beat me. And I refused to stay down. One afternoon, as I packed up to leave, a new hire named Marcus stopped by. He looked a little nervous. "Hey James, I just wanted to say, it's different here. In a good way. People actually seem safe. I've heard stories about what this place used to be like. But you changed that." I smiled. "Not alone, Marcus. It took a lot of quiet voices finally speaking up." He nodded. "You're like the guy people don't realize is a hero until the credits roll." I laughed. "Nah, I'm just someone who stopped apologizing for existing. Every battle has a beginning. But sometimes, that beginning is so far back, you don't even recognize it as a battle." What I went through at work wasn't just about Olivia's manipulation or Mason's silence. This went deeper. Because this wasn't the first time I'd been cornered, made small, or ignored. This had happened long before I ever stepped into a boardroom. That night, I came home, dropped my bag, and sat in the dark. No laptop, no emails, no to-do list. Just me. And my thoughts. And slowly, memories I'd buried started to rise. 7 years old. My dad yelling in the kitchen, my mom sitting in silence, me, standing in the corner, waiting for the punishment that never made sense. "This is all your fault," my father shouted. And I didn't cry, not even then. Because that's when I learned, silence protects you. Crying is weakness, staying still is survival. And from that moment on, I carried that silence, all the way through school, where I let teachers overlook me. Through college, where I took the blame for group projects. And into adulthood, where I stayed quiet in rooms I should have owned. Until now. Sitting on my couch that night, I asked myself something hard. Why did it take this long? Why did I let it build up? Why did I ever think my value depended on someone else's permission? I couldn't answer right away, so instead I grabbed an old notebook and wrote on the first page, "The real James." And I started writing the looks my father gave me, the silence from my mother, the times I laughed too quietly, the times I swallowed anger that belonged to others. And then, at the bottom of the page, I wrote, "James, that scared kid. He's not alone anymore. He has you now, and you didn't just survive. You stood up, you fought back, you won." The next morning, something in me felt different, calmer, stronger. Rachel and I had a planning meeting. We were designing a new employee training program. It covered systems, communication, leadership. But I insisted we add a new module: recognizing quiet harm, mobbing awareness. I didn't need to tell my story. I didn't need to be the example, because every word in that module was a shadow of what I had once lived. Not long after, Marcus, the new guy, stopped by again. "I've been thinking about what you said," he told me, "about not apologizing for existing." He smiled. "I used to be that guy. Still am, sometimes." I looked him in the eye. "Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Because you're not alone here anymore." That night, I opened my notebook and wrote, "When you begin to heal yourself, you give others permission to do the same." And in that quiet moment, I realized something powerful. The scared little boy had grown up, and now he was someone else's protector. Some people survive, others rise. This story may have started like a revenge plot, but it became something else, something deeper. This was a story of resistance, of healing, of rising from the wreckage. Months had passed, and the company. It wasn't the same place anymore. Fear was gone. Whispers were gone. People looked each other in the eye again. The systems we put in place were working, really working. And word had spread beyond our building. Other companies began asking about our programs, asking how we had shifted the culture. And every time someone asked, they always said the same name, James. But I didn't feel proud. I felt responsible, because I had lived this pain. And I knew there were others still living it. One day I got called into a board meeting. The executive team offered me something unexpected. "We want you to lead a new division, one built on justice, equity, and internal accountability." They were serious. They gave me a budget, a team, a platform. I thought about it carefully. This wasn't just a job. It was a mission. I accepted, but I didn't put my name on the door. I didn't hang a degree or a plaque. Instead, I hung one small frame above my desk. Inside it read, "Some don't survive. Others rise." Every time I looked at it, I remembered exactly why I was there. Not because I'd won, but because I'd refused to stay buried. We launched the new division: training, anonymous support lines, rapid response teams. More importantly, we created something even stronger: trust. And people felt it. One afternoon, I stopped by the break room. Marcus, our new guy, was there again. He looked more confident than ever. "You know," he said, "when I first started, I was worried. I'd heard stuff about how this place used to be." He paused. "But then I met people like Rachel, like Kevin, like you, and I realized I'm not just part of a company, I'm part of a change." I nodded. "That change took a long time, Marcus, but it was always worth fighting for." That evening before I left, I walked past my old desk, the one where Olivia once smirked at me, where Mason ignored me, where silence tried to swallow me whole. Now, it was empty, but it didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt sacred, because that desk wasn't where I was broken, it was where I was rebuilt. And as I stood there, I whispered to myself, "You did it, James. That scared kid, he made it. And now, he's someone's hero."